You ever have someone threaten to take everything from you while standing on land you actually own? Because that's exactly what happened the morning this whole nightmare started, and the shock on her face later was worth every second of the war she tried to start. My name is Mike Torres, 52, concrete contractor, born and raised in Riverside, California. I'm the guy neighbors call when their driveway is sinking or their patio's cracking. I don't bother anyone. I work hard, pay my bills, and mind my own business. But that Tuesday morning changed everything the second Linda Hawthorne marched into my driveway like she owned the entire zip code. The air smelled like warm dust and fresh mulch from my landscaping crew finishing yesterday's job. Sunlight bounced off my 3 work trucks, clean, parked neatly, not bothering a soul. I had a cup of strong black coffee in my hand when I heard the sharp click of heels on concrete. I didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. Linda, the HOA president, 6 years in power and drunk on every minute of it. She stood there with a clipboard tucked under her arm, chin so high she looked like she was trying to sniff the clouds. Her perfume, some vanilla floral mix, hit my nose before her voice did. "Mr. Torres, we have a serious problem," she said, waving a bright red notice in the air like she was blessing the neighborhood with a holy document. I took a slow sip of coffee. "Morning to you too, Linda." Her eyes narrowed. She hated when people didn't jump at her tone. "You violated community standards by keeping too many commercial vehicles on your property. The HOA has voted to impose a $500 monthly fee." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "For parking my own trucks on my own driveway?" She crossed her arms, clipboard pressed tight to her chest. "These trucks lower property values. We run a professional community, not a construction yard." Funny thing, as she lectured me, I could see her husband's massive RV sitting in their side yard like a stranded cruise ship. The thing hadn't moved in 2 years. It violated every rule she was throwing at me. I pointed. "So that counts as classy. That thing takes up half your property." She didn't even blink. "Frank's RV is grandfathered. Your trucks are not." I swear the way she said grandfathered made my blood pressure jump 10 points. Wind rustled the jasmine climbing my front fence. Somewhere down the street a dog barked, and for a second I wondered if the whole neighborhood knew she was about to pick a fight with the wrong man. "I bought this house cash," I said, keeping my voice even. "I've read the covenants. There's no rule about commercial vehicles." Linda smiled, the kind of smile people give before stabbing you in the back. "The board created a new ordinance last night, effective immediately." My coffee didn't taste as good after that. Something in my gut tightened. I'd been through a rough divorce 6 months earlier. Lost half my savings. Started fresh here. The last thing I needed was some HOA dictator aiming at me like a target. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You held a meeting last night? No notice? No vote from the community? As president, I have emergency authority." Quote. Translation: she made it up. She handed me the violation letter and spun on her heels. The sound of those designer shoes clicking down my driveway still annoys me more than a concrete grinder hitting rebar. I stood there staring at the paper in my hand. It was cheap printer stock, but the smell of cheap ink mixed with the morning heat felt like a warning. I folded it and went inside, my boots thumping against the tile. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that lets your anger settle into something sharp. By noon, I had read the entire HOA covenant twice. No rule about trucks. No rule about number of vehicles. Nothing even close. But here's where it gets crazy. Every Wednesday for 4 hours, a landscaping crew parked their diesel trailer, their mowers, and their chemical tanks in front of Linda's house. The smell of gasoline and cut grass choked the whole street, and nobody ever fined them. Why? Because her own son ran the company. That evening, the sky glowed orange with the setting sun as I walked over to her door. The neighborhood smelled like warm pavement and barbecue from someone grilling nearby. Linda opened the door halfway, blocking the inside like I might try to rob her. "We need to talk," I said. Her smile was tight enough to crack. "Mr. Torres, I'm very busy. You're enforcing rules that don't exist. The board has authority to add new ones. And the landscapers that block the street every Wednesday? That's necessary community service. And my trucks aren't? Her eyes went cold. Your trucks are industrial. They don't fit the look of Maple Ridge. There it was, not about rules, about appearances, about control. About people she didn't think belonged. I walked home with something heavy settling inside me. I wasn't just dealing with a power-tripping HOA president. I was dealing with someone who believed she could decide who deserved to live here. I didn't know it then, but Linda had just started a war she would never win. Because in a dusty county office, buried deep in old records, was a truth she never expected. A truth that would flip the entire neighborhood upside down. A truth that would make her regret ever stepping foot on my driveway. I didn't sleep much after that confrontation. The whole night felt heavy, like the air itself knew something bad was coming. My house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the steady tick of the hallway clock. I sat at my kitchen table with my covenant binder open, the pages smelling faintly of old paper and printer ink. Nothing in that book supported a single thing, Linda said. But the next morning was when the real madness started. I walked out with my coffee, steam rising into the cool air. The sun was barely up, giving everything that pale gold glow. Birds were just starting to chatter. I should have felt calm. Instead, there was a white city van parked in front of my driveway, and Linda standing beside it, clipboard in hand, designer heels, that same vanilla perfume, thick like she'd bathed in it, and a man in a hard hat beside her, nervous, sweating already, even though it wasn't even warm out yet. "Morning, Mr. Torres," she called out, waving like she was greeting a guest at her charity brunch. "We've received anonymous complaints about safety violations on your property." The inspector stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Just routine checks, sir." "Routine? Please." He kept glancing at Linda like a kid whose mom was threatening to take away his Xbox if he didn't behave. She was practically breathing down his neck as he examined everything. For 20 minutes this poor guy measured my setbacks, inspected my concrete pad, poked at my storage shed and took photos like he was working a crime scene. The smell of fresh asphalt from down the street mixed with the faint scent of wet concrete on my tools. When he finished, he wiped sweat from his forehead and gave me the same kind of look a man gives another man when he hates his job. "You're good," he said quietly. "Everything's perfect. No violations." The way Linda's jaw tightened was pure entertainment. She looked like someone had told her the world was out of wine. She stomped back to her car, heels stabbing the driveway like angry punctuation marks. Her face was stiff, but her eyes told the truth. She wasn't done. Not even close. And she proved that exactly 2 days later. Another certified letter. Thick envelope. That official courthouse smelled like dusty paper and toner ink. The state contractor licensing board. Somebody, gee, who could it be, filed a complaint saying I ran a hazardous, unlicensed commercial operation from my home. Claims included storing dangerous chemicals, violating zoning laws, and endangering neighbors. The complaint was so detailed, so specific, so dramatic that it practically screamed, "I'm Linda and I have nothing better to do." My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from anger. I'd been through battles before, legal ones, contract disputes, the divorce. I knew harassment when I saw it. And this was a full-scale assault. That night, I sat on my couch staring at my trucks through the window. The street was quiet except for the soft hum of a neighbor's AC unit and the faint smell of their jasmine bushes blowing in the warm air. Porch lights flickered on one by one. Then I started doing what I should have done from day one. I researched Linda. What I found shocked me. Bankruptcy filings. 2 refinances in 18 months. Credit reports full of red flags. And then, a pattern. Every homeowner she'd targeted had sold their homes within 6 months, below market value. And guess who had a direct connection to Pinnacle Properties, the development company buying them? Her husband. I remember sitting back in my chair, the leather creaking under me, feeling a cold wave run through me. This wasn't just a bored HOA president nitpicking grass blades. She was running a system: push people out, make homes cheap, sell them fast, make money on the back end. That made everything clear. The fake meetings, the emergency ordinances, the constant letters, the fines, the inspectors. She was grooming the neighborhood to squeeze out anyone who didn't match her ideal. Working class? Out. Single parents? Out. Elderly? Out. People like me? Enemy number one. I called my attorney friend, Patricia. She listened to everything, with the kind of silence that only happens when someone is taking notes while imagining a courtroom victory. "Mike, this isn't an HOA issue anymore," she said. "This is financial misconduct and discriminatory targeting. We're filing complaints immediately." The next week was chaos. Families came to me with stories. Jake Patterson, single dad, got a violation because his kids' bikes were visible through the garage window. Sarah Mills, the teacher, was cited for owning a vehicle inconsistent with community standards because she drove a 12-year-old Honda. Mrs. Morgan, the sweet older woman who baked cookies, was threatened with incompetency forms because her garden looked unprofessional. It was happening everywhere, every single day. And the desperation in people's voices lit something inside me that wasn't going to burn out. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for everyone she terrorized. But here's where the universe stepped in with something unbelievable. While Linda was preparing to escalate her war into a full-blown attack, I walked into the county recorder's office, and everything changed. Old documents, dusty cabinets, yellowed papers with ink fading like shadows. And then, one piece of paper, one legal map, one property designation. That hit me like a sledgehammer to the ribs. My house, my lot, wasn't like the others. There was special language written in tight legal text. Rights, powers, authority. My throat tightened as I read it. Patricia leaned in over my shoulder, her breath catching, and she whispered something that would flip our entire neighborhood upside down. "Mike, you're not just a homeowner here, according to this." She pointed to a line that looked like nothing but meant everything. "You're the master developer." I didn't even understand at first, but Patricia did. And what she said next was the moment everything turned. "Linda can't enforce a single rule without your approval." My heart kicked, my hands shook, the room tilted. Everything Linda had ever done? Void. Every fine? Invalid. Every meeting? Illegal. Every threat? Powerless. Because without knowing it, she had declared war on the one person who legally outranked her, and she was about to find out the truth the hard way. The day after discovering I was the master developer, I woke up with a level of calm I hadn't felt in months. The morning air smelled like fresh dew on damp grass. The sun was just creeping over the rooftops, and for the first time since moving here, those 3 trucks in my driveway didn't feel like targets. They felt like trophies. Because now I knew the truth. Linda didn't run this neighborhood. I did. But I didn't tell anyone yet. Not even Jake. Not even Mrs. Morgan. Patricia wanted everything airtight before we dropped the hammer. For 2 weeks, I lived like a guy holding a golden ticket in his back pocket. I went to work. I waved at neighbors. I even smiled when Linda strutted past my house with her heels clicking like a countdown clock. She had no idea she was walking into her own destruction. Her desperation hit peak insanity the week before the annual HOA meeting. Foreclosure notices, daily inspections, threat letters, anonymous reports about industrial hazards. She even stood in the middle of the road one morning, blocking a concrete truck from entering the neighborhood. The driver rolled down his window, tattoos on both arms, cigarette dangling from his lip. "Lady," he said, "move, or I'm moving you." Linda moved, barely. The whole street smelled like diesel fumes and fury. But the real meltdown came when she handed me a certified notice claiming she'd be taking legal possession of my house within 90 days if I didn't pay $7,500 in accumulated fines. I actually laughed out loud. She wasn't just wrong, she wasn't just overreaching, she was literally trying to take property from the legal controller of the entire subdivision. And she had no clue, not yet. But she was about to find out in front of every homeowner, 3 news channels and 1 sheriff's deputy. The annual meeting night felt electric. When I entered the community center, the first thing that hit me was the smell. Floor cleaner, nervous sweat, and cheap coffee. Chairs were packed tight, people shoulder to shoulder, heat rising off bodies like a furnace. Linda sat at the front table, hair sprayed into battle readiness, designer heels crossed, that leather portfolio in front of her like a shield. The woman looked like a dictator preparing for her final speech before the empire fell. The room buzzed, people whispered, cameras from a local news station glowed red. Then the meeting started. "Welcome, homeowners," Linda said, tapping her microphone. "Tonight we address non-compliance issues and vote on a necessary special assessment." Sarah Mills stood up from row 3 before Linda could finish. "No," she said. Simple, firm. The room went silent. "We're addressing you, Mrs. Hawthorne." She slapped a thick petition on the table. Papers rustled. People leaned in. 67 homeowners demand your resignation for harassment, discrimination, and abuse of authority. Applause exploded. Chairs rattled. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to vibrate. Linda gripped her clipboard like it was life support. "This is disruptive nonsense." Jake Patterson stood next. His voice was steady, but you could hear the months of frustration underneath. "You threatened to foreclose on families for hanging laundry. You targeted single parents. You tried to push out elderly residents. You harassed us all to benefit a development company your husband works with." Cameras flashed. Someone gasped. Linda's face twitched. Still, she tried to push through. "This meeting is out of order." That's when Mrs. Morgan rose slowly from her seat. Her hands trembled. Her voice cracked. But every word cut the room like a knife. "You told me I shouldn't live here anymore because I'm old. You sent people to judge my mind. You tried to take my home." The room went dead quiet. Even Linda froze. Then I stood, folder under my arm, heart pounding. But not from fear, from the certainty that this was the moment everything changed. I walked to the podium. Every eye followed me. "Before we talk about foreclosures or fines," I said, laying my documents down, "there's something you all need to know. Something Linda should have checked before she tried to run this neighborhood like a kingdom." I placed the subdivision master plan on the projector. The light illuminated the old paper, the faded ink, the legal lines that held all the power. "My property," I said, tapping the highlighted section, "is Lot 0. I let that sink in. Then, Lot 0 belongs to the master developer. And according to Riverside County Recorder's Office, that role transferred to me when I bought my home." The room erupted. People gasped. A few shouted. One guy yelled, "Holy crap!" Linda's face drained of color. She looked like she'd been hit with a stun gun. I continued. "As master developer, I control approvals for all new HOA rules, assessments, fines, and ordinances, meaning—" I paused, letting the weight settle. "Everything Linda has done for the past year is void." Gasps, cheers, pure chaos. Someone slapped the table yelling, "I knew it!" I raised my hand for quiet. "And I'm using my authority right now, effective immediately. Linda Hawthorne is removed as HOA president." The room exploded. People stood, clapping, cheering, hugging, filming. Linda tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. Then Patricia walked up beside me with a stack of financial documents. The sheriff's deputy stepped forward too. "Mrs. Hawthorne," Patricia said calmly, projecting her voice like an attorney born for moments like this, "you are under investigation for embezzlement, discrimination, and abuse of authority." Linda shook her head violently. "This is a setup. I did nothing wrong." Patricia lifted a binder. "These financial records show over $47,000 of HOA money diverted for your personal use." The deputy placed a hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." Her heels clacked wildly as she tried to back away. "No, you can't do this. I am the HOA." I stepped forward. "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "You were." And then she was escorted out of the room as cameras flashed like fireworks. The aftermath was beautiful. Neighbors hugged. Mrs. Morgan cried. Kids ran around laughing. Jake recorded everything for the news. The new board, fair, diverse, hardworking people, was elected on the spot. Every fine forgiven. Every foreclosure threat destroyed. Every stolen dollar repaid. And my trucks? They became the official HOA-approved work vehicles for community improvements. Maple Ridge finally became the neighborhood it should have always been: quiet, friendly, supportive, alive with the smell of barbecue and fresh-cut grass. And Linda? Well, she got exactly what she'd earned. Some people learn the hard way that power doesn't come from a clipboard. It comes from truth. And in this neighborhood, that truth belonged to me all along.